Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Bruno Talks with. Today we'll be talking about product management, we'll be talking about books, reading books, writing books, especially writing books because my guest Lena Sesardic wrote recently self-published book. It's about product management and breaking into that topic. But I want to experiment a little bit today. I want the main takeaway from this episode to be not only about the product management, but I want to plant an idea in your head. Think for a moment what you are doing, what you are good at, what you are doing for a longer period of time, and start thinking about writing and self-publishing your very own ebook. I know it sounds terrifying, I know it sounds frightening, but who knows, start the journey and see where it will go. Hopefully story and the content of this episode might motivate you a little bit into that direction. So hi Lena, how are you? What are you doing? What are you up to these days?
Hi, Bruno. Thanks so much for the intro. I'm super excited to be on this video podcast. So thank you so much for inviting me. So as you mentioned, my name is Lena Sesardic. So I've been a product manager for about 3 years now. So I actually started out of business analysis. I worked for a large financial technology company, and it was kind of like a startup within the organization. So that's where I eventually transitioned into product management. After that, I led an innovation team as a product lead at a customer experience management company. So I got my first taste of entrepreneurship there. Absolutely loved it. So then I basically, in February, decided to go off on my own and try to create my own products. In the process, I ended up actually writing a book, which was really random. So it's called The Making of Product Managers. It contains 20 stories of real product managers about how they transitioned into product management. So it just launched on September 1st. Super excited, gotten some really good feedback. Right now, I'm marketing that book, and then I'm also working on some other kind of product ideas that are mainly kind of tests that I'm validating right now. So that's kind of what I'm up to right now.
So yeah, thanks for the introduction. So you said you've been doing this for let's say 3 years, if I got it right. So can you tell me a little bit? I mean to our listeners as well. What is product management? I mean, what are the everyday tasks? What are you doing? What does it include?
Sure. Yeah. Great question. So I don't think there's any one definition of a product manager. So the interesting thing that I learned through my book is that, I knew before that there's different types of product managers, but actually writing the book and interviewing these 20 people, I learned that there's just literally so many types of product managers. And I discovered actually that the type of product manager that I was in my two types of experience was very, very different to the two experiences and also what other people might do as product managers. So when I worked at the first company, which was a financial technology organization, I was working, as I mentioned, kind of in a startup within the organization. So my boss had just prototyped a new web application that had basically just was being rolled out to the first corporate customer. And so I was basically, put onto the team to help scale the product and bring it out to more enterprise customers. Our customers were wealth management companies, so we kind of rolled it out to one customer at a time. Through that, my main tasks were a lot of customer interviews, a lot of talking to customers to understand exactly what they needed in the application, what were the absolute kind of key priority features that we needed to add in order to keep getting more enterprise customers through the sales channels of our company. The other interesting thing that I did as a product manager was I actually ended up being very technical, which I don't have a technical background. So when I first got hired at that company, I read the Business Analysis for Dummies book, and I thought I was super prepared. I was really excited, and I was like, I'm not a dummy anymore. But On the second day of my job, they said, do you code any JavaScript? And I said, no, I don't have any coding experience. I don't even know what an environment is. And they said, we're going to need you to do some JavaScript. And so any other person would have probably just thought that this was completely insane, but I loved it because I wanted to get my foot into the door with technology. So a lot of my time was actually spent configuring the system, the front end logic in JavaScript. So I basically just randomly learned it in a couple of weeks. A lot of it was also spent kind of digging into the code and understanding how it worked, working with the developers to understand how we needed to build stuff, because we didn't have a lot of resources because the product wasn't really quite proven out yet. So obviously the company wasn't going to give us an entire team. So I had to really this is where I really believe that a product manager is the glue that holds the team together. So you're not just planning a roadmap. You're not just talking to customers. You're not just getting information from your sales team, but maybe you're doing a little bit of coding. Maybe you're, talking with the developers and putting together some, high level plan of how the architecture needs to work. So you're really pushed to do a lot of different things. So I think a product manager is probably one of the most diverse jobs that I've ever kind of heard of in my life. And that's kind of why I love it. The second type of job that I had as a product manager was, again, very different. I wasn't in charge of a classic roadmap. I wasn't in charge of, just running the existing metrics of a product and improving it. I was actually on the kind of innovation side. So my job was to lead a team of a UX, an engineer, and we actually had an EIR, an entrepreneur in residence, helping us, but our team was mainly kind of running this innovation lab. And so we had to put together a framework to try and come up with new product ideas and validate them as quickly as possible. So predominantly before, my tasks were surrounded with more kind of a little bit closer to execution, just because the product, as I mentioned previously, the web application was very new and we were kind of trying to roll it out to customers. So it's kind of day-to-day operations. But the second type of product manager that I was really surrounding kind of early customer discovery, like interviewing customers and trying to basically validate our hypotheses and do very early prototyping, which is usually a lot quicker. You're kind of maybe hacking things together. So it was a completely different skill set, but I was still a product manager. When I talk to my other friends who are product managers at existing companies with kind of mature products, their days are much different, which, maybe they're talking to a lot of stakeholders and kind of managing the internal org in terms of what the product roadmap should be like. So it's truly, truly different. But I think if I had to I'm going to steal a quote from my book about what a product manager is. So I interviewed an individual called Alan, and he basically said that in his eyes, he now looks at product management as opportunity management. And I thought that was phenomenal, because what you're doing is you're basically really weighing the different opportunities, you're analyzing them, you're getting a lot of different perspectives in, and you're seeing what is the best way to go forward. And I think that applies to if you're planning, the roadmap for an existing product and you're trying to grow it, because you have a lot of opportunities. You have to figure out which opportunity to go for and which not, and why, and explain that to other people. Whether you're in an innovation lab as well, it's all different opportunities. They're everywhere, but you have to decide which ones to pursue or not. So that's kind of how I'd describe product management.
Well, yeah, and definitely there are, as you said, different types of product management. So, as you said at first, you even had to write some JavaScript. Tell me a little bit. Did you had to write the code for the sake of understanding the UX, for example, or is it like I don't know, some estimates that or some tasks that are scheduled that needs to be done on time? What was the main purpose or the motivation, not motivation, but the purpose of putting you to actually code?
Yeah, great question. So when I say that I was coding JavaScript, it was kind of a specific, I don't know if I can call it a framework, but we had existing files that were written by developers originally with the very basic front end logic. So just to kind of provide a little context, the application is basically, it contains a lot of online forms, web forms, and so they need business logic on top, and that's what we use the JavaScript for. So it's simple things like date masks, mandatory fields, conditionally mandatory, some validation. So a lot of it was existing code that I kind of would copy and modify. So it was a lot easier. It wasn't like I was doing proper kind of, net new development. So the reason for it was simply just we didn't have the resources because we only had 2 developers, and they were, of course, doing the important backend work and the APIs that I obviously would never be able to do. So it was honestly partially kind of out of desperation that we just needed product people to basically run with what we call them config files, to basically essentially keep rolling things out, but most importantly, make the changes for the customer very quickly and then deploy them fast so that we could keep iterating on the product for them.
And the second part you mentioned, the second type, you were more like, as you quoted from the book, opportunity manager. And from my perspective, when you are doing with, especially with those MVPs and phases, MVP size of product, let's call it that way. There's a lot of opportunity, and it's really good if the customer is actually willing to accept. If you are building it together with the customers, so then you may be onto something. On some bigger product out there, because customer may approach you with one vision, one idea, what he wants or she wants, but. And it could be a great requirement, valid requirement, but it's that process of when you are developing and when you are realizing, okay, this can be done faster, cheaper, or whatever, and also with a totally different approach and totally different even technology. But we won't mention technology, but on the global from the global perspective. So yeah, it's kind of both blessing and curse to work on the MVPs. When you are comparing it to the some enterprise projects, or where you have strong definitions what needs to be done and stuff like that. And on the other hand, if you are doing MVP projects, you have a lot of freedom and you have a lot of these chances to meet, to have opportunity to achieve something greater, something. Tell me, I read somewhere, I don't know if it's on your Twitter or maybe on your website or wherever, you said that you also worked as a product support for quite some time. Is that true?
On production support?
Production support,
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So and how was the experience? What you learned from that? So a little bit about that.
Sure, great question. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of production support. Most people hate it, but I think it's really, really important. The reason that I really kind of value it, I think, is because I listened to a YouTube video of Kevin, I can't remember his last name right now, but he was the founder of Wufoo, the API company. And so he, ages ago, I watched his talk years ago, and he was really big on having everyone in the company do production support, including engineers, just to really kind of build that customer empathy and just be a little more careful with the code that you roll out and how you kind of communicate things to customers. So from day one, I've really always really kind of respected production support. So the reason I had to go on production support was, again, because we didn't have all the resources on our team, because we were a tiny team that was moving extremely fast. It wasn't just that the company wasn't willing to give us resources, they were, but it's just we were moving just at such a huge pace that everything was constantly changing. The product was changing, almost every week. And so even if we were to train someone and hire them on, they would have to constantly be learning the new things about the product. And because I was so close to the customer and so close to the development, I knew exactly what was going on at all times. So once I finished my first customer implementation project to onboard kind of a wealth management company onto the platform, the existing infrastructure in the company wasn't prepared to support through production support, because the client support team obviously didn't know enough about our product and it was changing too much. We couldn't create documentation. The developers were obviously very, very busy with their coding, so they couldn't do the production support. So it was actually me and my boss. So for 2 years, I remember there was actually, I think it was an 8-week stint where every Friday night I had to support deployment. I was the only person. I had no developers. And so I had to basically, get the app server logs going and the little kind of like SSH into the logs and view all the logs, which by the way, in production move extremely fast. It's like almost impossible to see what's going on. But I basically had to be on deck to make sure that, the issues were going to be resolved during the deployment. And then also as the issues came in from the customer, they got directly routed to me and I would have to kind of deal with them. And if I wouldn't be able to know the answer because it was maybe too complicated in the code, then I would get to kind of ask my boss. He would be the first level of escalation. And then we would escalate to the developers if we absolutely needed to. It was a phenomenal experience. It was very painful because obviously I sacrificed so many Friday nights, and some of the issues, it's like I have no idea where to start because I don't know the code, right? But I had no choice but to kind of go in and start digging in the code. Thankfully, the backend code is kind of an older language that is pretty verbose. So it's actually easier to read if you're not a programmer. So I got really familiar with the backend code to the point where I knew exactly how it worked. The front end code, not so much because it was like heavy JavaScript. So that was challenging. But I was able to learn a lot about, how the system works, where the issues are, and the interesting thing that I learned about troubleshooting. So I used to always think that my boss was a magician because he just knew exactly how to fix everything. He was a developer originally, so he kind of had that advantage. But I was always really intimidated because I was like, how am I ever going to know how to find all these issues? And what I discovered over a couple months and what he ended up telling me, he was like, I don't magically know what the answer is. I just know where to look. And there's only actually 5 places where I need to look. So, I just kind of go through them one by one, and eventually it's always going to be one of them because the system is only so big, right? So it was really actually pretty like crazy because if someone would have told me 2 years before that I would be on production support, I would be looking at the logs and I would be fixing these issues for customers, and I would be the one that would be able to message a customer after, they entered a ticket a day before and say that, I fixed it, go ahead, and they'd be really happy. It was just completely insane. And for that, I'm really grateful. And I think it just teaches you some kind of, I don't know how to put it, but it just teaches you that there's more that happens with the software after you finish your task, after you roll out a feature. There's issues down the line, there's things you didn't think of, and it just kind of helps you really respect the fact that when you do things the first time around, you really need to do them really well, because otherwise there's going to be issues. And if you're the one dealing with those issues, you're going to be more inclined to do a better job before, because there were certain situations where a production issue happened because I missed a test case as the product manager. And so it really kind of forces you to be a little more cognizant when you're doing the initial testing and making sure that you're going to cover everything, because at the end it's going to come to you, right? So that was probably the most valuable lesson.
Yeah, definitely. And well, you seem like a person who actually chase the opportunities. I mean, from the things that you just told me about. So yeah, this is kind of what you were doing, and I suppose after some time you get the idea to actually start sharing this, to write this knowledge. So how it all started with the book? What was the first step? Did you thought that the writing book will be? I mean that the book will the final outcome, or did you start with something smaller, or how it went in the very beginning?
Yeah. So I was planning on starting with something smaller. So the backstory of it is, I think earlier this year. So I started kind of working on the book or the project in about February, but I think in January I read the book Authority by Nathan Barry. Amazing book about self-publishing. It was super eye-opening. And after I read that book, I knew that eventually I wanted to write a book, but I didn't think that there was anything that I knew about that I could write about. So I said, eventually when I find a topic, I'll write a book and hopefully it'll be good. And so in February, I have a lot of people coming up to me frequently asking me how I broke into product management, because they want to go into product management. There's no set path. It's very confusing. they always ask for advice. And so I'm constantly kind of answering these questions, connecting them with other people. There's one individual that I'm very close with who's still currently trying to break into product management. And I was chatting with him in February, and I decided that I wanted to do something that would be able to kind of scale helping people instead of me individually meeting with them. I said, maybe I'll just write an article. I'll interview a bunch of product managers. I'll ask them about how they broke in, what advice they have, and then maybe I can write an article that will help some aspiring product managers. So I was going to start small. And then I started, that's when the pandemic hit. So then, everyone started working from home and they were at home. So people were very free to chat, and they were very willing to chat because they were home alone and they wanted to be social. And so I just started basically scheduling interviews with product managers who I didn't know before. I really wanted to get a fresh perspective. So I started interviewing them, and I started asking about how they broke into product management. And I think I was about 8 interviews in, and I realized every interview that I did, I was just so surprised by the stories. They were all just each one was their own kind of meandering path. Each one had their own insights. They all came from different backgrounds, internationally, professionally, education-wise, like personalities. Some of them were accidental product managers. Some of them, seeked the profession out. So once I'd gotten about 8 to 10 interviews in, I started thinking, there's some really good material here. And after getting some push from a couple of mentors and some friends, they convinced me to actually write a book, which I was terrified to do. My dad's a writer, actually, so I've always wanted to kind of hop on that bandwagon, but it's always been very intimidating to me. But kind of just decided to go for it. I thought, this year is a weird year. I may as well try and kind of do something different. So that's kind of how I ended up just interviewing further and further. And I decided I was going to interview 20 product managers, write down their stories, and then I was going to write the long form stories. So that's kind of how it accidentally ended up being a book.
Yeah, nice story. I mean, from the beginning, and the pandemic a little bit helped you I know what you are talking about, because during this time I also had some casual chats with some other people who are like, okay, now I have some free time, I'm offering this or that service, whatever related to building products, and I don't know, reviewing something or whatever. But yeah, in this period, I also had a lot of these interviews, but most of them not interviews, but chats. But at that time, I was building something. Some of my own, working on some of my own side projects, and I actually find this useful because I had a chance to meet a lot of people who are like, okay, I have 30 minutes free, hop on a call or on a Zoom chat or whatever. So yeah, it did kind of change the opportunity. I mean, if it were I don't know, 2019 or 18 or whatever, maybe even in your case, you would harder get those connections and people that are willing to, I don't know, openly talk with some let's say strangers, because you were also approaching them, if I understood you correctly. So those are people that you didn't know before.
Yeah,
correct?
I'm part of a Slack community. It's called Product BC. It's absolutely amazing for anyone at BC who's a product manager. And so I basically have access to probably like 300 or 500 product managers that are in Vancouver. So it was actually really easy to kind of find people that I didn't know, because obviously I don't know the whole community.
Yeah, that was one of my next question. Where did you find those people? So yeah, thanks for already answering that. And so yeah, when people start to do these kind of interviews or books, or I mean, collecting and creating material that requires a lot of people, a lot of external I don't know, connections. Usually they start with a batch of, I don't know, 3 or 5 people that they know a little bit, but obviously you started totally fresh. So do you have any let's say, can you compare it? I mean, you have only you tried only one way, but do you have some pros and cons when you are starting with a fresh batch of people?
Yeah, I think the big pro was that the stories were really fresh to me. I think a lot of the other product managers I know, I'm very familiar with their stories. So it was a passion project. So I wanted to obviously hear new material as well. So that was a huge advantage. I think the other advantage is, which is huge, is, you make so many connections. Like I reached out to people in the product VC community. I'm part of a bunch of other Slack groups for product management that are also global as well. I think there's a couple people that I just kind of randomly reached out to on LinkedIn, but I think it's a really good way to create new connections. And if people are on board with your vision of what you're trying to do, and usually they are, because everyone really wants to help aspiring product managers, because it's really rough to kind of get into the field if you don't know anything. So it's really easy to get people on board. And I think it was a really nice experience to kind of get that positive feedback from people. Like a lot of people, because you kind of think you don't know someone, and you interview them for the first time for 30 minutes. And then later you discover you kind of need more information. You want to reach out to them again, but you don't want to bother them. But the overwhelming positive response that I got was crazy. Like every single person was, if you need any more information, send me over questions. I'm happy to chat again. One guy's in Amsterdam. I think we chatted about 3 times with the time difference, and he was just so willing to provide new information. One of the disadvantages, of course, is you don't know the person, so you're not as comfortable. And so maybe you're a little bit shy to kind of take a lot of their time. But I think overall it was a great experience. And I think the one thing that I kind of realized pretty early on was, if you're interested, first of all, I think the great way to write a book is just to interview people. Because if you don't have anything yourself, or maybe material that you're not confident you're an expert in, if you interview other people, that's just great material, and it's from experts, right? One of the books called Traction was actually an inspiration to me. The author's names escape me right now. One of the guys named Gabriel. Yeah. So
from
So they basically interviewed a bunch of different marketing experts for Traction channels, and so that was kind of part of a motivation for me as well, or inspiration. But the big kind of conclusion that I had was, if you want to write a book but you don't have material that you feel like you're an expert in, interview other people. But the kind of additional realization that I had was, imagine that I was an aspiring product manager and I wrote this book. I think that would be an awesome way for you to actually get into product, because you're making the connections, you're learning about people's journeys. You then kind of get perceived as an expert, as per Nathan Barry's book Authority. As soon as you write a book, people kind of figure, you know something about this field. And I think it applies to anything. If you're trying to get into, marketing, maybe just interview a bunch of marketing people. If you're trying to become an entrepreneur, interview entrepreneurs. Like, I think there's a lot that you can learn through it yourself, and also showcase yourself as an expert. So that was kind of a huge advantage of kind of interviewing people that I didn't know.
Yeah, I can already recognize some there are some similarities with what I'm doing actually. So with this podcast, so when I first get the idea, I didn't have the idea that I would do one of those scripted podcasts where I'm talking for a half of hour or 1 hour or whatever. So I'm bad at it. I'm really bad at it. So I had the idea, okay, why don't I bring guests so they can speak most of the time, and I can just ask some question and steer some conversation. And I also feel that when you said that you are getting new personas every time. I mean, someone every like in this in my case, every guest is different. I mean, when you are I don't know, take into account the voice, the gestures and everything, so you have to adapt. And for me as well, this is the with every guest I'm speaking for the first time. And but on the other way, it turned out every time it turned out good, because we talked about topics that we both understand, or at least think that we understand, and we find some common language, and we have topics that we can talk for a longer period, and then it feels like you know each other for maybe longer, or I don't know, even if you met this person for the first time. But yeah, definitely there is this. But on the other hand, I totally agree with you. It's a really nice source of different opportunities, because you are making so much connections. It can be, I don't know, it can be for the moment just for the sake of the book, but who knows, in the future maybe you will have a totally another a set of opportunities. So I wrote down a few things that I also want to ask or to mention. So I was wondering, so is this when you, okay, you get the advice that you should start writing a book, and it started, but did you have some clear vision what would your book look like in the end, or was it kind of a process that you were tweaking along the way, or did I don't know, did the other people had impacts on you? I mean, especially these interviewees.
100%, yeah. So sometimes through writing the book, because if you don't plan something out perfectly, obviously you're kind of running into situations where you live with your past decisions, right? Like I interviewed people without the purpose of writing the book, and then now it's kind of like, well, this is the material that I have, right? So in hindsight, there were times where I wish that I would have kind of, if I would have planned the book out perfectly, I'm sure it would have turned out totally differently. But I think that's kind of the beauty of random projects. It's just kind of, they just formulate on their own, and you just kind of have to roll with it. So to answer your question, I did not really have a plan for the book. I knew that I wanted to showcase the stories. I didn't quite know how. So one of the decisions early on that I made was that I wanted to, because really the audience is aspiring product managers. Although existing product managers have also found the book interesting, which I figured that they would as well. But because it was kind of greatly aimed towards aspiring product managers, I really wanted to incorporate little informational boxes throughout the stories. So let's say someone starts talking about a design sprint, or maybe they start talking about they transition from product marketing. I then kind of did a little section of, this is what product marketing is, or this is what a design sprint is, or, someone is talking about leading through influence as a product manager. So I did a little snippet. This is kind of what it means, just to showcase, frameworks or theories or kind of ways of doing things in product management to make it a little more informational. So that kind of formulated on the way as I was writing the book. The other part that really helped was kind of co-creating with my interviewees. So they were actually so awesome. So when I wrote the stories out, I sent the stories to them just because I really wanted them to get the final version that was getting published. I didn't want to kind of take their story and just turn it into something that they didn't expect was going to happen. So I really wanted to be transparent with them and make sure that they were consenting to everything, and everything was accurately represented. But what I was really impressed with was they really went above and beyond, and they provided a lot of their own input. They really helped with a lot of editing as well. Like a lot of the time they kind of even said, maybe this part isn't really, part of the story, you can include it, but maybe it's not within kind of the scope. So they really provided a lot of kind of interesting ideas that I incorporated. One of the best ideas that were incorporated was one individual who, when she sent me back her story with editing, she had added like subheadings to the story, because each story is around, it's actually pretty long. Each story is between like 7 to 10 pages, just single spaced, not too much spacing. And so she added the subheadings. And initially when she added them, I was kind of like, interesting. I'm not sure that, the subheadings really, I wasn't sure how to react to it because it was unexpected. But as I kind of thought about it, I was like, this is a genius idea. Like it makes it way better. And it also gave me a chance to kind of put in some humorous subheadings. I really like to kind of be funny and try and kind of make people laugh. So I took it as an opportunity to make it fun and kind of get subheadings going. And that way people, when they read it, they can kind of pick the parts that are interesting to them. And then what else was it? I think just generally even like the formatting. I worked on a lot of it with my boyfriend. He actually helped me with a lot of the design, and so it was completely unplanned. Um, but we kind of evolved it as we went. One of the things that I added in pretty late into the project was estimated reading time at the top of every story. So they were typically between 11 to 20 minutes each story, and that's gotten really good feedback from my readers now, where they're happy that they can kind of essentially, the way that I see the book is it's not a book that you buy and you necessarily read back to back immediately in one sitting. Maybe you kind of first pick the ones that are closer to your story. Maybe you carry the book around with you on your iPad because it's an ebook, but you have the book on with you, and then you have a 12-minute coffee break, and then you flip through the book and find the 12-minute story. So I really wanted to kind of treat it as a product and kind of iterate on it and get more feedback and kind of change it as I went. So I think that was the beauty of, because the way to kind of think about it is, if I had planned the book perfectly, it would have been a waterfall approach. And usually the requirements aren't really that good, because we don't, as we learn things along the way, you can't really change it because it's waterfall, right? But I really took an agile approach. So as I started writing it, I was thinking, I wrote the first story and I thought, maybe I can change it like this. And then I would modify the other stories as I went. And then I added the reading times, and then I added the designs, and I kind of added the subheadings, and I slowly kind of got to evolve it. So I think in that aspect, it was a lot better than I think just kind of planning it out from scratch. Although at times it was really stressful because you're not really sure kind of where to go and kind of what it's going to shape into. But overall, I think it worked out pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds that it did work out because you collected so many of these suggestions. So, for example, I like subheadings, and especially this estimated time. I'm a really big fan of that. I mean, on the blogs, on the newsletter, or on. I'm suggesting to people to put it everywhere. So, for example, if you have a newsletter and people get your emails, I don't know, during the, as you said, coffee break, but sometime when they waiting for their bus, train, or whatever, while they are working or on a pause, on wherever, yeah, they can be. And if you see that the mail is like, or blog or whatever is like 3 minutes, then you can think about and say, okay, I have 3 minutes and I can read it. And I think it's especially useful in your case because it's as you said, it's not one of those books that you need to read from the first page to the last. So and also, for example, in those ebook readers, you have that 12 minutes left in the chapter and stuff like that. So I really liked it. What you said, your boyfriend helped you with the design, and you mentioned that your dad is also a writer, so it's kind of in-house production, so zero costs, I assume. And what are there any costs? I mean, other than that. I mean, it's a self-published book. If I understood it correctly, so you can buy it on the Amazon and on the Gumroad. So are there any external costs other than, I don't know, what cost did you
Yeah,
have?
I'm trying to rack my brains right now. I'm trying to figure out whether I paid for anything additional than Grammarly, because I got the premium of Grammarly just kind of for the sake of it. Other than that, I mean, I paid for the custom domain name for the making of productmanagers.com, which is the landing page for the book. I used Card to build my website, which I already have a Card subscription for other purposes as well. So I don't really count that as a cost for the book. There was really no other. I used open source, free products for designs. I used Canva for some of the images in the book. I think my boyfriend used Inkscape for the book cover. And then for the publishing, we just basically used Word and converted it into PDF. And then when I did the EPUB version, I used online tools to convert that are free from Word to EPUB. So there's actually no additional costs other than just Grammarly, I guess.
And I know about this detail. You didn't mention it, but you said your dad is writer and your mom is
Yeah.
editing all his work. So she helped you edit.
Yeah. It was fully kind of a family project. Yeah, it's funny because I'm an only child, and so I've usually always like gotten the attention from my parents, and so my boyfriend makes fun of me that this is another one of those kind of Lena-oriented family projects where, as soon as every story was kind of completed, I'd send it to my mom. She'd do the editing, and then my dad would do some of the editing as well. He's currently working on his own book, so he was kind of a little bit busy, but she did a lot of the editing. And honestly, what was just really awesome is my parents, obviously I'm Croatian. My parents are Croatian, and I'm kind of I consider myself to be a native speaker because I learned English when I was 3 when I lived in America. And I'm very comfortable with English, but for my parents, they're really not native speakers. They learn English very late in their life. Like they learned a lot of languages, they're pretty linguistic, but it was pretty phenomenal. Like my mom has amazing editing suggestions because she's edited all my dad's books for him. She helps, help formulate his ideas with him as well. So it was really awesome to it was actually really awesome to like work with my mom, which obviously I've never worked with my mom. So it was really fun to kind of have that experience. And I think I'm really proud of the fact that it's a homegrown project, even from the front cover design. So me and my boyfriend took, I think it was one evening on a weekend where we just kind of spent 4 hours just basically designing the book. We started with taking like a silhouette of a free image on the internet that was like the I know what the thing is called in Croatian, pieščani sat. It's like the hourglass timer, like with the sand. Yeah. So we just took that and then we basically iterated on it. So I actually really want to write an article that shows kind of like the iterations, because the initial design was honestly really ugly and it was just really bad. And my poor boyfriend, he designed the kind of first early version. I was just like, I hate it. It's really ugly. So then we kind of kept iterating on it, but he was super patient. He's also not a designer at all. He's actually an engineer. Like he builds ships for the government in Vancouver. So not a designer. I'm not a designer. I don't understand colors. I don't understand spacing. Like we're not at all good with that stuff, but we managed to kind of together iterate on it. It wasn't even just the colors, but it's also just figuring out kind of what do you want the front cover to represent? Like what elements should we use? Like what makes sense? And then how do we make it kind of enticing, right? So anything from, picking the color palette, it was just completely new to us, but I think we managed to, do a really good job. And I'm really proud of the front cover. I'm proud of the internal formatting. And I think it's interesting because at one point I thought about maybe paying a designer, and my boyfriend kind of had an interesting idea. He said, don't pay someone, because if you pay someone and you don't like the design, or worse, other people complain about the design, you'll just feel really, crappy about yourself because you've paid someone, right? But if you created the design yourself and you tried really hard and someone tells you, hey, the design sucks, it's kind of like, well, I'm happy with it. And also, of course it kind of sucks to some people because I'm not a professional designer, and that's okay, right? Like you don't have to have you don't have to pay a lot of money to have a design. You can actually do it yourself. And trust me, that's coming from someone who literally is not a designer and is not comfortable with it at all. So I think it was a cool way to kind of see what you're capable of that you usually don't think you are.
Yeah, and the key is in this iteration. So first one will definitely be something that you want to erase from your memory as soon as possible. But over time, and it's never going to be perfect. I mean, even designers that don't. It's also a curse for them. They cannot. They can't finish their work. They always can add a little bit. I don't know, few shades here, or I don't know, change a little bit colors and things like that. So yeah, and also this I have one time I also hired a designer, but it was like I think the platform is called 99 Designs or something like that, where you put the price. And there is the first round, the first contest. I mean, it's a kind of a contest, and you are picking the actual designers, and it's pretty much. I know what you are saying, that you can feel bad if someone do all the best and you are paying it, and in the end you don't like it. But on this platform, the experience, at least for me, was completely different. So, and the people were like pretty much open to the changes. So they're like, but also that requires a lot of time and energy, because especially if you have something in mind, and of course designers will have something else. But maybe it was with specific to my case, because I went with the cheapest package. So probably if you pay more, then you will get more like I'm not saying more professional, because it was also looking professional, but maybe a more dedicated person which will just focus totally on your problem on your graphics. And while on the one hand it was kind of cheap, it required some time, mailing back and forth, chatting, okay, try to, I don't know, move this or move that. Even if you provide a clear description what you want to achieve, I mean, not exactly in pixel, but you provide what you want to at least to have on the page, because of some, I don't know, functional reasons. So for example, in my case it was like Android application, and they were adding this download on App Store. So no, it's not on App Store, it's Android. So yeah, and you mentioned that you paid for this Grammarly for writing checks. I mean, checking the writing style. And tell me a little bit about the difference. I mean, I'm actually curious about the difference between the free plan and the paid plan, because I'm using a free plan so far. I mean, sometimes when I'm preparing some blog posts or some other written forms, but I heard a lot from people that a paid plan is pretty much much more powerful than a free plan.
Yeah, so the free plan, it checks for kind of, spelling errors and very basic grammar stuff. It's extremely helpful. I think my top two favorite products right now are Canva and Grammarly, in that order. I was blown away. I actually didn't know about Grammarly until my mother told me about it, so it just shows how innovative she is. But she was like making these edits and they were really good, and she said some of them are coming from Grammarly because she had it installed. And so because I'd spent no money on anything else, I said, I'll spend it on Grammarly, because at the end of the day, I wasn't getting like professional copywriters and editors to like tear apart my book. So I thought, I'll do Grammarly as an extra check. The biggest difference with the premium version of Grammarly is that it also detects, it helps rearrange your sentences in a more sophisticated way. So the free one, it kind of shows you, you should probably add a comma here. You should probably phrase it like this. But in the premium one, it actually literally will reorder the sentence for you in a simpler way. And a lot of the time it was kind of like, why did I even write the sentence in such a verbose way to begin with? The other thing that Grammarly really tests for is the passive voice, which is one of the things I learned through writing this book. Is Grammarly hates passive voice, by the way. And in some situations, I just, I think the passive voice is necessary. Like it's the right way to do it, to not have a passive voice, but in some cases you really can't help it. But that's kind of one of the things that it controls for. And it also lets you specify the purpose of your document and the tone that you want to convey. And then it basically make sure that you're in line with that. So let's say if you want to have a conversational tone versus a professional tone, versus you want to sound more positive, or you want to be neutral, or you want to be convincing. So it really helps you kind of more with kind of like the deeper language insights. It helps you with that. And I think it's great. I think it's totally worth it. If you're writing a lot, probably not tweets or LinkedIn posts or something like that. But I think if you're writing a blog, I'd say I would personally keep it on. I think I signed up for the year, so now I'm locked in. But I was really happy with the premium. I think it's great bang for your buck. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, yeah, as I said, I'm using the free version, and as you said, it's like okay, add comma here or maybe change the article, or I don't know, things like that. And actually even that helps me, because I'm also not a native English speaker or writer, so it's really a big, even with a free plan, it's a really big step.
It's a huge help. It's a great product. Yeah, the free tier is extremely valuable. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we talked a little bit about writing books, but I would like to also to mention this thing that I found on your page. You have open Trello board where you list all your books that you read, and your current reading list and future reading list. And so tell me a little bit about that. Why doing that? And I don't know. Are you using I mean, there are even some other services or applications which can also achieve this. So why Trello, and why keep it open?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I obviously think reading is really important. I didn't used to be a very big reader, and my dad used to always kind of get on my case, because obviously he'll just read a book on the weekend casually, and I was never a big reader, but I've become a bigger reader over the last couple of years, so I think it's extremely important. I probably just picked Trello because I think I just didn't really know of any other tools, and I just kind of I'm not very innovative with tools sometimes. I'm trying to actually become a little bit more open with trying new things, because as a product manager, as you know, an aspiring entrepreneur, it's important to kind of get exposed to products. But I think it was just, Trello works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I liked the fact that I could make it public. I think I initially didn't make it public, and then I made it public later. The reason I did was just to add more stuff to my site. I wanted people to kind of get more value once they visit my website, and not just hear about me, but just maybe get, some reading recommendations. I feel like there's just so many books out there, and it's hard to, even if you read reviews, because you don't really know the people that are giving the reviews, but maybe if you see someone's website and you understand who they are, like, I'm a product manager, this is what I'm up to, this is a book I've written, this is something that I'm doing, these are my favorite articles, like you can kind of get a gauge of how close you are to that person in mindset. And then maybe if you see their reading list, you can kind of trust, okay, this person's similar to me, they're reading this, maybe it's relevant for me. I think my inspiration to make it public might have been, I came across this Trello board a couple of months ago of an individual who put it together that contains a bunch of no-code tools. And she put, I think there's like probably 100+ tools on there. And I was just kind of inspired by that. And I thought, why not share my reading list? I was hoping to do more with it. I really wanted to kind of, maybe provide a little summary of why I liked each book. But I think it's just, maybe to inspire people, these are the books that I've read, you should maybe read some too, and have a record of how much you've read. And yeah, I also found that there's so many different categories of books. So there's product management books, there's leadership books, there's business books, there's like design books. And I really wanted to have them very clear. So on my Trello board, each column is a different category. And I did want to track the books that I have read as well, because sometimes once I read something, I just kind of forget about it. And often I do refer, recommend books to people. So, if someone's asking about multiple categories of books, I just send them my Trello board, and I, go crazy, just find whatever you want. So, yeah.
And yeah, definitely when you put it all together, and when someone asks you, you already have it, and you can just send a link. I'm wondering, but probably you don't have any analytics how many people are actually using that. I mean, is it even possible to connect it?
I don't know if Trello does that. That's an interesting question, actually. Yeah, because it's not part of my website. I might be able to see like who's
maybe clicks, maybe who is clicking, but the actual loads and yeah, I saw some interesting books, some that I read. So, for example, there is this Radical Candor from Kim Scott. Also, we mentioned this Traction from. Actually, there are two authors of that book. I think it's from DuckDuckGo, and there's the mom test also from Rob Fitzpatrick, and the other books are I just it was kind of preparation for this talk, and I just skimmed through it, and there are a lot of interesting books. So I also recommend, we'll probably put the link in the description, so that other people can find. Okay, another book type question. So you recently actually won a book on some giveaway. What's the deal with the podcast or something like that? And also I happen to know that you bought recently a microphone. So when we can expect your first episode, your first podcast episode?
Great question. Yeah. So I recently won a copy of What's the Deal with Podcasting, written by Alex Edwards. I have to give a shout out to Alex. Honestly, he's been so phenomenal over the last couple months. Like, we just probably connected over Twitter a couple months ago, and he's been my go-to for kind of random questions about, publishing or image files or, marketing books and stuff. Like, he's just been super collaborative, and he's a great person. So follow Alex Edwards on Twitter, because he's absolutely amazing and just the kindest person ever. So I've won his book, What's the Deal with Podcasting? Super interesting, really good kind of basic intro to podcasting. Bought this mic because, obviously I'm on this podcast. I've also been invited to talk on the Product Momentum podcast, which is a product management podcast. So I figured, I'd buy the mic, but secretly the reason I bought the mic is because I actually want to start doing my own video podcasting. So I want to do it on YouTube as well. I'm still currently trying to figure out what topic. So what I've done, so different to what I did with the book, where the book I just went like all hard or go home, and I just wrote a book. But with the YouTube channel, I've actually started an Instagram account under my own name. So Lena Sesardic is the handle. It's mainly kind of to start building an audience and kind of, get in front of a little more people, so I can kind of market stuff to them down the line, or maybe influence, help them with some of their thoughts and stuff. And so I've started doing the Instagram thing, where I kind of do little videos about what I'm up to or what I've learned or things about the book. And so I'm hoping that will kind of get my confidence up of recording little videos. Maybe I'll even do some IGTV stuff. But then down the line, I do want to start a YouTube channel. I've always been a fan of kind of doing little videos. I'm pretty comfortable in front of the camera. So I thought, why not take advantage of that? So I think I'm hoping by the end of this year that I'll be on YouTube. So that's kind of what I'll say right now. Yeah. And it'll be around product management, entrepreneurship, maybe some of the things that I'm learning, but probably early stage. So aspiring product managers, aspiring entrepreneurs, anyone who wants to kind of follow my journey and learn the little things that I've learned so far.
Yeah, looking forward to it, and it's good that you said that you are comfortable in front of camera. I'm not, so. But
I can't tell. You look comfortable.
Me. Well, okay, yeah, maybe I just hide it well enough. But for me, this is this whole video podcast was the actual. Actually, to try to kick myself out of the comfort zone, because it's the only way to make some progress. Because if I'm doing I don't know endlessly what I'm doing before, there is no progress on a personal plan. And also, I'm kind of doing this, increasing this let's say online presence, and I don't know, trying to increase some I don't know, Twitter audience and things like that, because I think it's pretty much powerful when you have some kind of I don't know, if you have some kind of reach, if you things that you write or things that you say can be I don't know, sent to many people, that it's quite a powerful thing, and why shouldn't we take it? So I really mean, so I'm really looking forward to start listening and seeing what you are doing with this. So, and definitely I would recommend. I mean, I started this. I mean, this is maybe my 6th episode or so. I think, yeah. And as I said, I met a lot of people and I gained so much experience. And 2 months ago, if someone would mention podcasting and everything, and even recording and putting on YouTube, for me, it's like, no. But yeah.
I think it's smart that you're doing interviews because you don't really have the option to re-record. Because my issue with even when I did my first Instagram thing, even though I started my handle, I only had like one follower, which was like my girlfriend or something. I was still nervous because even though I'm comfortable in front of the camera, it's a new medium, it's a new topic, it's very nerve-wracking. So of course I recorded probably 8 versions of my story that probably only 2 people watched. But if you do the interviews, you don't have that option. So you're kind of forced to just roll with it, be happy with it, don't pick at it. So that was a great choice on your behalf.
And one also suggestion that I would maybe give it to you if I may. So just start with something and record like 5 or 10 episodes. I mean, just put the goal to record no matter what happened. So record it because there will be time that you won't feel like recording. There will be time that you are like, what I'm doing this, why I'm doing this, and but no matter what, just keep that in mind. So record first, I don't know, 5-10 videos, and then at the end, at least that's my plan as well. So in the end, I will take a look back and see, okay, am I good at this? Am I producing good enough content? Things like that. But it can happen that after 2 episodes or 2 videos, you are like, no, this isn't going to work. But it just can give you a false impression. Maybe it's.
100%. Yeah, I think consistency is key. And I think if you can get into the habit of being consistent, even if you don't decide to do it after, because I like the idea of you doing the 10 episodes and calling it a season. I think that's absolutely awesome. I thought about that too. Because it gets you into the habit of finishing what you started, right? Because even if you just end up with a season and you move on to something else, you have a great, set of content that you can, use as an asset for your name. And it shows that, you followed through what you did and you actually created some consistent content. So it's phenomenal. Great advice. Thank you.
So I know a little bit that you are playing piano. Is that correct? So are you still playing? Are you active pianist, or how it's even called in English? So are you
pianist? Yeah,
pianist? Yeah. Are you active, or did you do it? I don't know, in the school or when?
Yeah. So I actually played piano for 9 years when I was younger. So my mom's dad, my grandpa, was a composer. So he had his own radio show, and so he's a massive pianist. So I always had to practice several songs when I went back to Croatia and play for him. And so, yeah, it was during the lockdown that I kind of discovered that, I'm short on hobbies, because most of my hobbies are either, work related or reading about work related things that interest me, or reading about entrepreneurship. But I needed something that was going to kind of take me off of, just take my brain off kind of intense things. My boyfriend actually produces music, and so he's a big kind of music fan. He plays the guitar, and so that was part of the influence. And I decided a couple months ago during the lockdown that I was just going to start playing piano again, because he plays a little bit too, and he likes to record. And so we said, let's just buy a keyboard. We were initially going to buy kind of a small one and just start out, but he kind of insisted that we splurged and actually bought a proper one that, has the pedal and it has a good sound and everything. So I started playing again a couple months ago, and it's going really well. Yeah, I play pretty regularly. The last couple months, not so much, because I was kind of writing the book, but I'm back into it now. I can play 3 songs. One of them is 1,000 Miles by Vanessa Carlton. I don't know if anyone's a Vanessa Carlton fan out here, but it's great. I love it. It's been really fun. Yeah, so I play pretty regularly, and it's just a nice way to kind of take my mind off everything. And I don't really consider myself to be at least I'll correct that. I didn't used to consider myself to be a very creative person. So I think that was my way of kind of finding a new creative outlet. Well, re-finding my old creative outlet. playing piano, and I think it kind of brings me back to my younger years, which is always fun to feel. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. And so when you are focusing, are you more like listening on piano music, or I don't know, some other kind of music when you want to achieve some kind of deep focus? And what's your music of choice for these opportunities?
Yeah, it's gonna be deep house or drum and bass. Very intense. Sometimes I'll listen to piano music while I'm working, but usually deep house or drum and bass, it really kind of gets me in the zone and it blocks everything out. So yeah.
For me, definitely, it has to be some kind of instrumental music, because I'm easily distracted. Because even if someone starts singing, I was like thinking like there are words out there, and what they are saying. And I also recently, but it's kind of phase. I'm recently fan of these old like game music, but arcade music or something like that. It's synthwave or things like that. And it's also kind of it can put your brain, I don't know, I mean, it's a background music, and you can focus on what you are doing. Okay, so yeah, I think yeah, we had a pretty much great chat. I have one more question, or maybe even just a kind of opportunity for you to say where people can find you, I mean, just to speak about whatever you want to promote here. I don't know how many people will hear it, but yeah, it will stay on YouTube, so I will definitely put all the links below, but yeah, feel free to.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So my website is lenasesardic.com. So as Bruno mentioned, I have an active reading list up there if you want to check out the books that I've read or I'm reading or I'm about to read. I'm also on Twitter, obviously. Handle is Lena Sesardic. LinkedIn as well. Recently started an Instagram page, Lena Sesardic. You're welcome to follow me. There's not a lot going on there yet, but I hope to really grow it and start kind of producing content. Yeah, that's about it. The other thing that I should probably mention, which you might see if you go onto my website, is I've been working on a product idea since early this year that's called Hippokite. So the goal of it is to help you track your accomplishment and achievements over the years, so that you can basically be prepared for a performance review or a new job application, or just generally if you want to track what you've done. My boyfriend actually learned how to program Python this year, so he actually built a little desktop app for it. So he's about to install it on my computer tomorrow. So I'm going to start kind of playing around with it. And then as soon as I'm happy with it, I'm going to roll it out for a second beta. I did a beta earlier this year. So if you want to track your accomplishments and, you know, do a good performance review, then feel free to sign up for hippokite.com. You can also access it from my website. So, and feel free to reach out. I'm super happy to connect with anyone, chat and, you know, share ideas. So please don't hesitate to say hi.
Okay, thanks. And yeah, so thanks again for being my guest. It was really, I had a really nice time chatting with you. So yeah, we talked a little bit about product management. We talked about the books, especially the book that you wrote. We also talked about the other books and the reading a little bit about that. And yeah, the general the message of this episode, what I would like to send is, I mean, in this example, Lena applied what she knows about product management and write it in a book. But think for a second what you are doing, what you are good at. And because if you mention to someone write a book, it's kind of a big deal. I mean, everyone will say like, no, that's not for me, because yeah, maybe I'm thinking about the book format as an old book, or I mean the old-fashioned book. I don't know even how to express myself, but people are refraining from that, and they are thinking like, no, I'm not a writer, I'm not. But I would like to motivate to do quite the opposite. So just start, maybe put some kind of a plan. think about what you are good at, what you are doing maybe for 5 years, for even 10 years or whatever. There's definitely a knowledge that you can pass to another people. And also it's kind of quite a nice way to earn some additional money, because also you have a lot of these platforms where you can just promote your book. And while we are promoting your book, I have there was one question from Twitter. On Twitter, I asked if someone wants to ask you directly some question, and Nemanja, he's also from Canada, I think. He asked, "Where do you promote your book?" So I almost forgot that. Sorry, Nemanja.
So the way that I promoted my book, I haven't actually quite gone full throttle into marketing yet, but I'm kind of slowly kind of evolving the different channels. So following the traction book, I'm experimenting with the different channels to see which one I can get the most traction on. I started with an email list, which had about 100 people. I have a really strong LinkedIn network. That's kind of like my network that I mainly live on. So I've managed to kind of promote it through there very well, mainly because I'm connected to a lot of product managers. So that's probably the biggest advantage for me. I know a lot of product managers, obviously locally, globally. I'm in a lot of communities, so I've managed to get the word out that way. I'm in a lot of Slack groups, existing coworkers, past coworkers. I've seen kind of sales coming in from that. One of the kind of interesting things that I want to try with marketing the book, and I've started to do this, is kind of doing more like things that don't scale. So I'm really treating it as a product. So I'm trying to do initiatives. I joined, I'm doing a small talk at a organization called PM Dojo. It's Vancouver based. It basically helps product managers with a 10-week course to give them hands-on experience with product management. So I'm giving them a bit of a talk about, breaking into product management. I'm also doing kind of one-to-one mentoring sessions for product managers to kind of provide value, because really the purpose of the book wasn't necessarily to make money. It was mainly just to gain knowledge so that I can help other people. So I really want to use that to either help people break in, mentor them, or even showcase aspiring product managers. I want to use it to kind of shed light onto more people. So yeah, I'm still kind of experimenting, but those are kind of my existing kind of marketing channels, and the podcasts, of course. Those have kind of randomly come my way, and I've been super happy about it. So I'm hoping that there'll be more kind of reach through the podcast, as well as people can kind of get to know me a little and understand what the book is about. So yeah, that's my answer there.
Definitely, you have a great set of connections and already built a network, and I can't imagine when you have a full throttle. So it will definitely go. And I'll also hope that it answered the question. So yeah, it was kind of tumbled in the end. I had those closing words, and I just remembered that even I had that question in front of me, but just forget about it. Okay, so yeah, thanks again. And this was Lena Sesardic, and yeah, thanks for watching this episode or even listening. I recently started doing an audio version only, so it will also be available as audio version. So, and see you around.
Thanks, Bruno.